Welcome to a Community Partners interview where we explore the organizations, opportunities, and resources that look to make change in our daily lives. I'm your host, Davy O, and you're listening to Voices for Ability Radio. All abilities, all the time. Today, I'm joined by Kathrine Killam, the Community Participation and Innovation Manager at Camphill Communities, Ontario, an accredited not-for-profit organization that supports adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities in Simcoe County. They support people in directing their own lives and in promoting partnerships, opportunities, well-being, freedom, and contributions in the community. Camphill's mission is to enrich society by creating meaningful opportunities to live, learn, and work together, and to build a community where people of diverse abilities enjoy quality of life and personal growth in a rich social and cultural environment. Thanks for joining us today, Kathrine.
Well, thanks for having me here.
Well, it's our pleasure. Now, to begin our conversation today, for those of us listening in for the first time, or the long-term listeners, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself? What inspired you to work at Camphill and with individuals with disabilities?
Sure. So I was working in retail management for years, and it just didn't fuel my soul or my heart. So I went back to school. I was studying psychology and was doing some volunteer work at what was then the mental health center in Penetanguishene. And then I also entered the field through the Children's Aid Society. And it's difficult, it's heavy, it's complex work. And I got a foot in the door at Camphill because they're a local organization that has long roots in the community. And community work has always really resonated with me. So I got my foot in the door with them 17 years ago now. And I worked in all of the houses over time. And then my role just evolved and changed and grew as the needs of the organizations grew. And I gained more skills. And it just became a really nice fit.
That's definitely an inspiring story, and I can definitely relate to you on a certain level with it too. Because I myself, before even starting this gig with being a host on Community Partners, I myself worked in retail. Although if you scale it up a bit and call car sales retail on a higher level, then yeah, I definitely understand the soul crushing nature of how that line of work can get.
Yeah, and it maybe not entirely fair. There were some incredible experiences, and I got a lot from it as well. But it just didn't feed me in the same way as working in this field does.
Oh yeah, of course, and I definitely felt the same way. Not only when I started here, but also when I got into the sort of field of security work and even community work that I've been doing on my end too. But yeah, that's absolutely amazing. And now shifting away from that, in preparing for this conversation today, there was just a lot that I found we could discuss. And in no rhyme or reason, I began by looking at your website and saw that, again, you did have a lot. On the one hand, you have land activities, creative and fine arts, which I can that's definitely another facet of my life that I absolutely love. Food preparation, another aspect of life that I absolutely love. Life skills, vocational support programs. Do you think that you could give us and our listeners a little bit more about what all those entail?
Sure. The essence and at the heart of it is we really strive to provide services that the people we support find meaning and value in. So we started in the 80s. We're coming up to our 40th year. I guess this is our 39th year. But we're very lucky because our founders purchased a 290-acre plot of land. So with that, there's a lot of opportunity. So as you mentioned, we have a wide variety of activities, but a lot of them are land-based. So it's a biodynamic working farm. So we have a herd of Highland cattle, we have a horse, we have goats, we have a donkey. So there's a lot that goes into taking care of them, but it also mutually beneficial, right? Because there's a lot of work that goes into caring for the land, but we get so much from it, just sitting and being present with the animals and all the environmental stewardship. But so that's one of our programs, just the land, tending to it. But there's also recreation that happens on the land. So we have a whole network of trails through the forest. We have market gardens, 6 acres dedicated to agriculture. We have a maple syrup social enterprise. So that's an area that we can generate revenue through the sales of maple syrup. And so it creates paid jobs for people with disabilities as well. And then, yeah, you mentioned arts and culinary, all sorts of programs, because we have that 290-acre biodynamic farm out just past Angus. But throughout Barrie, we have more rural activities and locations as well. So we have an art studio where we do pottery. It's a full-fledged pottery studio with 3 kilns, wheels. We do fabric arts like weaving and crocheting and knitting, fine arts. We do everything. It's kind of where to start, where to finish. Like it's always evolving based on the interests of the people that we support.
Of course, and a lot of that speaks to my a lot of that speaks to the sort of inner farmer or inner cowboy that I got going on myself. Because yeah, I mean, there's nothing better, honestly, in my opinion, than living off the land. There's just a simple nobility to it, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you need to come out and see the farm, and we'll put you to work because it takes a lot of hands to get everything done. But I agree, like especially with our agricultural programs, like it literally is feeding our communities. So not just our Camphill community, it provides food for all the houses. But also, we do a lot of work with other organizations and not for profits and the food banks, and food security is a real issue that touches a lot in our community. So it's twofold for us. We get the benefit of the food that we create, but also we get to feed our communities as well.
Good note, and we can definitely circle back to. And you gave me an idea that we can circle back to later on in this conversation.
All right.
I will say that I've been up to Barrie before. It's absolutely beautiful. I wouldn't be surprised if one of these days you see me drop by the farm.
Yes, please.
Now, that being said, on another note, you also have something called supported living and supported independent living being offered out of Camphill. Do you think that you could tell us a little bit more about both of those?
Sure. Yeah, of course. So supportive living is more of like a group home model, but at Campbell, it's really, really important to us that we're listening to what the people we support want, and what they're telling us is they want to live smaller. So when I say group home, I'm not talking about like houses with, 8 to 10 people. Our houses are intentionally getting smaller and smaller in terms of choice, who's living together, who wants to live together, how many people want to live together. So in our Barrie houses, the largest home that we have is 3 right now. And in the coming months, we're going to be opening a house of 1 because a lady wants to live independently but still needs support 24/7. So we're trying to make people's choices come to fruition so they have more autonomy around who they live with and where they live. So in supported living, it's that group home model where people will live with roommates, or like I say, this one lady will be living on her own and they receive support 24/7. Our supported independent living model, that if you might hear me refer to it as SIL, that's supported independent living. So it's individuals who don't live in Camphill owned properties. They live in their community. So they rent an apartment, they rent a home, and they just need a certain amount of hours of support every week. So their needs are met while they're still living independently in the community.
That's absolutely amazing to know. And on that note, when it comes to sort of figuring out or assigning supports or resources to people under Camphill's sort of watchful eye, what's the process like in those cases?
Yeah, we have a really close relationship with the ministry, and Developmental Services Ontario. So we work together with them. If there's any vacancy at Camphill, then they will kind of consult their list and let us know who's next on the list for housing, or what those individuals' needs are, and then we work together to make sure that it's the right fit. They're coming to live at Camphill, or them coming to be supported in our supported independent living program.
Of course. And now you mentioned this earlier as well, social enterprise. But on top of social enterprise, there's also personal outcome measures. Do you think that you could remind us a little bit about what social enterprise is, and also give us a little insight into what personal outcome measures are?
Sure. Yeah. So social enterprise is really, it's an enterprise or an organization that takes into consideration not just financial gains of the business, but also we work hard to make sure that we're environmental stewards, and that there's social gains and social benefits to the program. So our social enterprises are maple syrup social enterprise. And for us, the key really, well, again, we're always measuring those three dynamics. So is it financially, is it environmentally, and is it socially sustainable? So for us, environmentally, like I mentioned, we're on 290 acres of a biodynamic farm. And biodynamics is really a practice kind of a step above organics. So we're stewards of this land that we have, and we make sure that all of our practices through our maple syrup social enterprise consider the impacts to the environment. So our operation is actually a carbon neutral operation, which is great, which just means that we sequester more carbon than we emit, which is of course important considering the changing world these days. But yeah, sorry, I can get long-winded about this. It's such an amazing project that we have, but the social piece is really, the social and the financial piece are tied together. For us, what's the point to running a social enterprise if there's not value for the people that we support? And so, like I mentioned, our social enterprise creates paid employment for people with developmental disabilities, and we're there to support them. But it's such a great way to learn small business while still getting paid. So things like doing deliveries or labeling or education, all of those areas are just paid opportunities for the people that we support. And then the money goes right back into the program so that it can continue for years to come and is financially sustainable.
Fair enough. And if I remember correctly, tying into the social enterprises bit is Market Gardens and the maple syrup operation you got going on, correct?
Yeah, that's right. There's several avenues where we can generate revenue where we don't receive government funding, and that's really just to put money right back into the program so that more people can be involved and it can generate revenue for the program and for the people that we support.
Of course. And what about if you hadn't have already mentioned personal outcome measures, how does that tie into all of it?
Sure. So we are accredited by the Council on Quality and Leadership, and a big part of that is it keeps us accountable for the services that we say we're providing. And the personal outcome measures, it's really like a person-centered discovery tool, and it helps explore goals and achievements that are personally defined by the people that we support. So we're constantly checking in with everyone that we support and with all of our stakeholders to make sure that the services that we're providing really are services that really matter to them, and it includes their hopes and their aspirations and their goals and their dreams. But then it also the measures it gives us tools that we can use to evaluate the quality of our services and help us to become more responsive and improve the quality of people's lives that we support.
And that's absolutely amazing to know as well. And to that end, on the topic of, well, you mentioned something. You mentioned carbon neutrality a little earlier during our conversation. This ties in perfectly into what I'm going to ask you about the environmental stewardship program that you offer. Do you think that you could give us a little insight into it?
Yeah, I can. Yeah. So what I will say, it's more than a program. It's kind of like an overarching value that we have. We feel very strongly that we're stewards of this land that we're on, and we want to make sure that we're doing right by the land, because in turn it does right by our community. And the maple syrup social enterprise is just one facet of that. But all of our practices, so our biodynamic practices, we don't use herbicides or fungicides or pesticides or chemicals like that. They don't go into the land or the food that we grow. We try and keep the processes as natural and as healthy as possible. And we also recognize that we're part of a larger ecology that we need to keep safe. So it's an example is we have hascat berries in our market gardens, and the birds love the berries. And so for us, it's coming to peace with knowing that they're going to take a huge portion of our berry yield, but what they give back to us is, I was going to say manure, but I don't know, it's called manure for birds, but it's a whole system and cycle that we value. So what the birds give to us is as valuable as the berries that we give to them, as an example.
Of course, it's one big cycle. And now to that end, programs and all the programs and services and all that aside at Camphill, are there any events coming up that Camphill will be taking part in this year or or in the next?
Yeah, we have a few annual events. So we recently finished about a month ago. We did our big maple festival, and we partner with Drysdale's Tree Farm, which is a local business. And every year we do our maple festival there. But coming up, I don't know when this is going to air, but on May 3rd we have our spring fair. So that's at our property in Angus, and it's just an opportunity for the community to come together, and we sell some of our products like our pottery, our woodwork products, maple syrup. We'll be selling seedlings, and it's kind of just before people will start planting for the spring, so you can get some organic seedlings there as well. And we make a bunch of food, and everyone kind of gets together and has a meal and really embraces spring. And it's such a great way for the community to come together and just look forward to this winter ending. But yeah, so that's the spring fair is on the way. And then in the summer, we always do a fun fair as well. We have a self-advocates group, and they organize a big fair. And so we do that at our property, and we invite other service organizations to come and join us. And there's carnival games and rides and food and giveaways. And it's just a really nice way to celebrate summer together outdoors, carnival style. And then, yeah, and then we always have a holiday fair as well at the property. And that's usually the third week in November.
Wow, oh my goodness, you're definitely speaking to the part of me that loves that sort of country lifestyle and country way of living. That sounds absolutely amazing. That sounds absolutely amazing. But yeah, besides that, besides that, in terms of be it accessing these services or even accessing the events in general, are there any restrictions to, say, accessing any of these services, accessing any of these events, or just even becoming a member at Camphill? Say maybe age, disability type, caregiver, things of that nature?
So we support adults, so anyone over 18 and with a developmental disability. So those are really the only requirements.
Okay. And on the flip side of that, what about membership or volunteering? What would the processes be like for someone if they wanted to become a member of the of Camphill or volunteer with Camphill?
So to become a member, we have our annual general meeting, usually the third week in June. I believe it's June 21st, but I'd have to double check this year. And so anyone could become a voting member and then attend our AGM. And we have a lot of friends, a lot of family, a lot of community that we just welcome to events and activities as well. And we have like a mailing list that people could sign up for that, or our social media channels. You can find us on Facebook or on Instagram, and our website. There's always a lot of information posted on there for ways to get involved. For volunteering, we could always use volunteers, especially in our programs like the land and the garden. And if volunteers have specific skills that they just want to offer to the public, we have volunteer weavers come in, we have volunteer cooks, printmakers. Like, we love working together and collaborating and partnering with the community. So I would encourage anyone to reach out via our website or our social media channels.
Of course. And now that leads us on to this honestly one of my two favorite questions in all these conversations that I have with anyone who comes to talk to us. The first being that, without naming any names or getting too specific, are there any success stories that you can share with us today about anyone who came through Camphill?
Yes, absolutely. One that's top of mind for me is a gentleman who he came to us actually when his father passed away. So he was living at home for a long time in the GTA area, and then he came to live at Camphill. I guess about 9 years ago now. 9 years, and he from Camphill and all the different programs that we offer, he was able to explore a bunch of different areas. So when he started with us, he thought that he wanted to work in the garden and work on the land because he loved helping to mow the lawn at home and barbecue and do those sorts of things. And so he did it, but then, realized he didn't love it. And so he started exploring other programs, and turns out he's an artist. So he works a lot on his own art, and he's since launched his own business. So he has a stand or a stall at the 400 market in Barrie, kind of, yeah, between Barrie and Innisfil, just off the highway. And every Saturday and Sunday, he's there selling his artwork and working his butt off on his, running his own business. And it's so inspiring. And he's such an incredible salesperson, such a strong advocate. He actually came third place for an arts award for the city of Barrie. And he's getting more and more known around the area for his, like, he does mixed media art, and it's such a joy, and he's so proud, as he should be, of the successful business that he's running.
What that's absolutely amazing. And on a slightly related note, I've been up to the to that area between Barrie and Innisfil, in and around the 400 market itself too. Though still developing, it's still a really amazing area to be. And I will admit that trip that day ran me a couple $100s because I spent it on boots, but otherwise it was still a beautiful place. It's still a beautiful place.
Yeah. Well, I should say on behalf of Greg, for anyone who is looking for some art, yeah, go check it out. Saturdays and Sundays at the 400 flea market. And everyone knows him. You can ask any of the vendors. It's quite the community that he's built there as well. So you could ask any of the vendors where to find Greg's art stall.
Got it, and I'll definitely keep that in mind. Keep that in mind the next time that I'm up there. Not hopefully not to spend more money on cowboy boots, but anyway. But yeah, but this leads on to the next my second most favorite question that I ask all of the people that I converse with on the show. In your opinion, what is one thing you see happening repeatedly to individuals with disabilities that shouldn't be, and how do we collectively go about stopping it?
Yeah, one thing that we struggle with all the time is employment support. So we're continually trying to advocate for people with disabilities to earn a living wage. And I think just collectively, it's recognizing that people are more than just their productive value. So I think often people assume that there's one way of working and one way of doing things, but there's so many different skills and abilities that people with developmental disabilities bring to the workforce. And so we've had some really great success stories, people finding employment, and it took the right employer, obviously, and doing a lot of advocacy for those individuals. But we struggle, and we'd like to find more business owners, more employers who are open to hiring people with disabilities.
Of course. And then there's also those of us with the entrepreneurial spirit, like Greg, who managed to, as you have told me, success story wise, opened his own stall at the 400 market, and won a bunch of art awards for his work.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And we're trying to and actively actually working in the small business ecosystem to help people who want to become entrepreneurs, people with developmental disabilities. We worked together, and we continue to work together with small business centers, with the Henry Bernick Entrepreneurship Center at Georgian College, just to help people live meaningful lives in a way that they find value, and a way that is more integrated with the community.
And that's absolutely amazing to know. And on that end, Kathrine, if our listeners are looking for more information, of course, you already mentioned the website and your social media channels like Facebook and Instagram. How else can they find you? How else can they reach you if they wanted to find out more about these programs, these services, and just about any other events that are coming up?
Yeah, those are the best ways, honestly. Facebook, we post a lot on there, and it's so, like, we post a lot of stories. It's run by our media group. Like, all our social media channels are run by our media group. which is a group of people with developmental disabilities supported by some staff. So their voice is represented. And there's a lot, yeah, there's a lot that you can get from our social media, the stories, the events, celebrations. And our website, if you want specific individuals, you'll find us on the website, or even you can just contact us through there. And we have an amazing administrator who makes sure that we get all the information.
Of course. And that's fantastic. Kathrine, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. And we're happy to have you back anytime.
Great. I look forward to seeing you out in Angus too. Please do come see us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I will definitely keep an eye. Yeah, hopefully it'll be soon. And with that, we've reached the end of yet another amazing interview. You're listening to Community Partners presented by Voices for Ability Radio. All abilities, all the time. I'm your host, Davy. Be safe, be kind, and I'll see you all next time.